Hello, hello. I actually wanted to talk to you today about this video that I saw. It kind of linked in like a few of the different other topics that we've been talking about before, related to manifestation, related to like inner child healing, which we've talked about separately. But this video basically like puts them together and kind of makes you realize how intertwined you getting things in your adulthood and you manifesting these things, which is such a popular term and thing to be doing in this day and age. It just really shocked me because I remember in a previous episode, I think you actually asked a question like, do you lose the ability to daydream? Do you lose this ability to have this imagination that you have when you're a kid? This video basically said the answer to that question, which was yes, we kind of do lose that ability because as we get older, we grow these limiting belief systems and our perspectives on things kind of get solidified, but in a positive or negative way, just depending on what we've grown up around. We're all just conditioned to believe there's only so much we can achieve. There's only so much self-worth that we can have for ourselves before we become self-obsessed. And these things are always seen as quite negative. So I just wanted to talk about the idea of manifesting in relation to healing yourself, because it does make a lot of sense if you think about what you want in your current state, because your manifestations are built on the fact that what you believe and what you think can come true. But then if you have these preconceived ideas of what you can do in your life and the reality, and as you get older you kind of lose this ability to imagine anything for yourself, then I think the important thing is maybe to take a step back and think, actually we need to somehow get back to that place of feeling like the world is our oyster and anything is possible. But how do we do that? That's the trouble.
Yeah, I've always struggled with like the concept of limiting beliefs, because I've always thought, okay, how do I actually unlimit the beliefs? But I think if we're talking about like the inner child or the younger version of yourself, whoever it is, that believes certain things about your future self, so someone even more grown than you in the present day, I feel like there's a couple of different things that influence those limiting beliefs, and I don't want to ignore them all. So like obviously you'll have the environment that you grow up in and what you see and hear, because there is that thing as well where I think by the age of 7 you've like developed and solidified like your beliefs of the world, and that's pretty young. So, and because that's so young, it's difficult to reflect and think like, oh, what did I see up until I was 7, especially the older you get. So you've got your current environment. As women, and also as brown women and women of color who are listening, I feel there are ceilings on like what you even see is possible for women like you, especially if you don't grow up surrounded by wealth or big dreamers and things like that. Like if you don't grow up surrounded by that, you won't even see, like, even outside of your household, what's potential for someone, what is the potential for someone like you. And then I also don't want to discount like just the crappiness of the world, politics, equality, equity, things like that are going to also influence, like, in some way, shape or form, your limiting beliefs that you've formed. I don't want to discount any of that, and I just wanted to kind of like recognize that that's probably influenced your limiting beliefs. And they've influenced mine, because I think when I was younger, and I'm still working through all this, like I still don't really have a clear picture of me at like 50. And if I'm happy, why? Having that clear picture of what that looks like, I think is a kind of manifestation of my limiting belief almost, because it's like so unclear. But I definitely think that the more you kind of revisit the inner child stuff, you're able to dream bigger. And I did ask that question, like, does growing up kill that ability to daydream? And it's because like the more you grow up, the more you realize, oh, if you're a woman, you have less money to invest. If you're a woman, you're gonna retire with less. Like all these like facts and figures hit you in the face, and then you're also told certain things, whether it's directly or indirectly. So I feel like when you have those limiting beliefs when you're a kid, they're almost reinforced as you grow up, and then because they're reinforced, it's like even more difficult to dream big. And the other thing I think as well is like with inner child stuff, I think probably before this year, I had a very like knee-jerk reaction to the inner child phrasing, because of my like own journey with like spirituality as a whole, I think, and things that are woo-woo. People would say inner child to me and I'd think like, oh, like do I need to do any of that? Like, is that just kind of like wishy-washy, like people, and it's always associated to like crying and being upset and like
feeling
you know
feelings.
the feelings, yeah, and like being really deep and like difficult work. And it's because it is, by the way, because everyone's so traumatized. And just a story on that quickly, I went to Roxy Nafusi's live manifest show, and she did a like live 5 to 7 minute meditation on inner child. And it was so funny. It wasn't funny, it was really good, but it was funny because, so she obviously had everyone close their eyes. We started visualizing our inner child. We started like hugging them and like thinking about like all the stuff they've been through. And when I tell you, there was not one person who was not sniffling and crying in this like auditorium of like 1,000 people. Like, it was crazy. Like, even I cried a little bit because like I recognize how much crap my younger self has been through, and I feel really bad for her and stuff, and I'm sure most people do. And that's why it's so difficult to actually go back. And I think in the video that you sent, the narrator, he describes it as like a bow and arrow, where like if you pull the bow back, that's essentially you like going back to revisit your inner child and like figure out why do they think that they can't dream big. And that process is just so friggin' emotionally hard. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I like consciously limit how much inner child stuff I do because it does make me feel so sad. I don't know about you.
I think, do you know what? For me, it's a bit weird because I don't actually have many memories growing up or being that little. And I don't know if it actually is me subconsciously doing that, like blocking.
It might be.
But I haven't really got to a place where I focus that much on it, like I do a meditation in terms of like I'm actually thinking of my inner child, because it is, I don't know, I still feel I'm getting used to it a bit more now, but definitely at the beginning I was a bit like, what the hell are you on about?
Yeah, that's what I was like,
what are you doing? Like, I just didn't understand it. And I think when I've been in this like whole process of trying to do all these things like self-healing and improvement related, I have been more open to it, but I've not like gone there yet, because I don't know, maybe there is a little bit of fear there. I'm not really.
There is. There is. It's the same. It's probably the same fear that people have with like going to therapy, or I've heard of, I think it's EMDR or is it EMDR?
Yeah, I literally saw a video on that the other day where you move your eyes and you talk about something traumatic, that type of therapy.
Yeah, but I think it's been linked to inner child stuff a lot, and like people have so much fear about going to that type of therapy because it's because in yourself, and like the fact that you don't have the memories that you think you do, but you consciously don't do it as well, like me. I feel like there's a part of you that knows that it's gonna be crap.
I think because the parts that I do remember, I still to this day really want to forget. So I'm like, I don't want to bring up more. But you know what's really rubbish is that, because I've heard this said a lot online, is like you tend to only really remember the bad stuff if you remember anything.
Yeah.
And it's hard because then I feel guilty for that, because then I'm like,
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm sure there was good, but I don't remember any of that. I just remember like the actual traumatic stuff. And then because that's like been buried and I don't want to remember that, it's like I don't want to then actually take myself back to a place where I can remember even more, because I know there's good in it, but also I'm telling myself like, what's the good in that? Like, why do I want it?
Yeah.
It's hard though, because then hearing the whole manifestation thing and how like you pull the bow back, because once you've done that work back here, you can propel yourself forward in your like current life and your adult life, and that makes things better so much more now. And we've literally just done a whole episode on like improving yourself, and so I don't know what I'm on about right now. Trying to avoid all that.
Exactly, that's literally what I was thinking. I was like, I just admitted that there's like there's some really hard useful work that I am literally actively avoiding.
But I think that just is, it's natural. I think that's human to like want to do all these things and improve and like feel like you are doing the right things, but also knowing how hard they are and how much like just energy and emotional turmoil you have to go through to go through it, because you already know that that's like what's in store for you. It is hard to not avoid it and shut the door on it.
Yeah. But bringing it back actually to, because this episode is all about how to not manifest your dreams. Right?
The wrong way to do it.
Yeah, like how to manifest the wrong way.
Oh, well, we're on the right path then. Ignore all
Exactly.
that
So
stuff.
this is exactly what not to do.
Yeah.
But like what you're saying there is literally like, if you take a step back, right? I'm talking to myself here, so don't worry, guys. But if I take a step back and so I see myself doing the difficult work, do I think that's worth dreaming bigger? I'm at a stage of my like journey of, you know, building my self-worth and like my self-esteem and stuff like that, because I'm definitely on that journey right now. The ability to dream big, it's like I really want big dreams, like I really want big things for myself, and I know that, and I'm like happy to admit that. So for me, if I think about all this like really gross hard work I have to do with like inner child healing and kind of thinking about all the crap I've been through and like working through it and accepting it as well, if I take a step back, yeah, it's worth it because I want those big dreams. But I can understand if you're someone who knows that the inner child healing process is going to be difficult, but you're also not able to either vocalize or see those big dreams for yourself. Like maybe you're kind of not dreaming that big, you're not going for big goals, you're kind of just like taking life as it comes, then it's really easy to just avoid that hard work forever. So I think it comes like hand in hand as well, because the way that video phrased it was like you have to do the inner child healing work first and then you can dream big and achieve those dreams. But I actually think if you take a step back, you almost need both to kind of justify doing the hard work, especially if you're someone who's easily going to put it away and like not do it.
I guess it just depends on like what you define as like these big goals and dreams, because I found myself recently, I don't know if this is a common thing or not, but I was this like super ambitious, like had all these goals, and I achieved a lot of the goals, like maybe like early 20s, I want to say. And then I got to a place where I kind of found a bit of peace and like comfort in my lifestyle, and once I'd achieved certain goals, I kind of stopped thinking about these like massive goals. And it might have been an element of me like growing up and then all these like realities set in, but I think it also mainly was because of the comfort of where I'm at now, feeling like they're not as much of a need as they once were, because before I was in this place, it was almost like I was trying to escape my current life and I wanted like something more. Now I'm in a stage where it's just like a comfortable level that I've never actually felt before. So I don't know, maybe I feel like I've lost the ability to like dream big because of that in a way.
I don't think you've lost the ability. I think you're enjoying the process rather than moving the goalpost, which is,
yeah,
I think that's the goal for most people. Like that is how you should be doing life. And I don't, just because I kind of know enough about you to say that like I don't think you lack it in yourself to dream big. I just think you're doing goal setting and manifestation the right way. But because it's not really, I guess, like spoken about in that sense, like hitting a goal and kind of just marinating in it a little bit, yeah. and then thinking about what you want to do after. It's not, that element isn't really spoken about because it's difficult to get to that point in the first place. Most of the advice is around how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's so true. That's a good perspective, actually. I'm so used to like achieving the goal, then on to the next one. I never just sit in it. There's always something more to achieve. But then I found myself in a place more recently where I'm like just silence. Like I don't have this need to jump at something. But then I also feel a bit, why don't I feel like that? It feels weird, and it feels like, is that not the right way? But no, I guess you're right. And I think the only way to really like continue doing what I'm doing, or as I want the big things, of course I do, it's just like there's not that
urge.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm okay where I am now, and can I just stay here for a little bit longer? I don't know.
I think that's even manifestation, like done properly as well. Because like, I'm just thinking back to that Roxy Nafusi event as well, just because it's in my head now. But she was very vocal about not having that desperate energy for a goal, because that desperation is what is going to literally help you avoid that goal in the first place. And like, the desperation is caused by thinking that having even a 1% thought that you won't achieve that goal or that thing that you want for yourself. If you have that 1% of doubt, literally like 0.001% of doubt, that desperation will be
dreams.
there. Yeah. So it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is that you're not desperate to reach your goals, because you know when you get up again, you're probably gonna get those goals. But because you've hit the goals that you set for yourself before, you're just enjoying that process, and you think you're worthy of that like peace and comfort and slowness now, that you're happy to do that. Like, I don't even think you need to question that. And then it again, just proving that you're like doing it the right way, which I definitely need, because I definitely feel that like fire under my bum in the wrong way, for sure, for a lot of my goals. And I really struggle to like, Roxy used this language as well, and I'm using a lot of her language just right now because I was just at her show, but she used the phrase like surrendering to what you want. You're doing that and I'm not. Basically, I struggle to surrender. I'm like, oh, if I do this, I'll definitely get closer. If I don't do this, I'm just gonna slack, and then what happens then? So it's really scary.
I know. I get the fear of that I'm becoming lazy, though. I think that's what my fear is when because I'm so used to being this go-getter, and as soon as I'm in this place where I'm comfortable, but I'm like uncomfortable with the fact that I'm comfortable. If that makes sense. It's just probably just me creating a problem out of nothing.
Yeah.
But then my priorities have shifted slightly, where I'm actually trying to like work out me as an individual. Like, I've always had these goals, but my goals have always been rooted in what other people I have expected or wanted for me. But now I'm actually trying to take a step back and think like, what does Farah want? Like, what do I want to see in my life, and where do I want to go? And that can't be anything to do with what anyone else wants for me. And for me to do that actually is the work before that, which is the whole like inner child stuff and like figuring yourself out and kind of overcoming all those things that, like, these perceptions or these belief systems that have been taught. I'm kind of trying to, maybe undo is a bit strong, but just kind of figure out what is for me and what isn't, and what I want to take forward, and then get back onto, okay, now this is my goal for my life.
Yeah.
I think that's the stage I'm in. So maybe, it's not a bad place to be, I don't think.
Oh, definitely not. I think it's like I get into similar stages where I get paralyzed by what is the right step that I need to take next in order to achieve my goals. And that paralysis can come from, okay, I'm going to put off doing the hard work because I know it's going to be hard. Or the paralysis can also come from, okay, I don't know if the next move I make, if it's wrong, then am I further away from my goals? But the paralysis also comes from, interestingly enough, not doing the work which seems like worthy of being called work. I don't know if that makes sense as a sentence, but in terms of like you just said, you feel lazy, but then you went on to say like you're figuring out what's right and what's not. You're thinking about doing this inner child work. Like, you're still doing, at least thinking things which are going to help you get to where you want to be, even if that isn't like you getting up off the couch and writing 1,000 emails and posting 1,000 posts and, like doing things like that seem like more worthy of, I don't know, being productive and taking action. You're still doing things in the background to think about what's right for you. So like that can also induce my paralysis, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not doing something that seems like it's going to take me forward. Yeah.
I think it's just this idea of being perceived, this whole idea of being perceived busy and being perceived as someone that's like
even to yourself.
Things. Yeah, because you internalize all these beliefs, and I think that's the reason why you do this whole process of undoing all these ideas or belief systems that just been inbuilt and you've been taught, is because these like hold you back so much. The idea of like having to look busy rather than actually being busy, the idea of like having to go after things that actually you don't want for yourself, but you think that like it's good to look like you're doing those things. I think that's probably why that's so important, the inner child stuff, is because then you get to the root of what you actually want for your life. And then when you achieve those goals, they're actually things that are fulfilling for you. So you're actually going to end up 10 times happier because you're manifesting then the things that actually are going to make your life a success in the version that you believe it's successful, not everyone else around you. And that's probably where I'm at right now, because I've had a lot of goals and things, and I've done a lot of things and achieved a lot of things purely off the back of what was expected of me. And it's not really given me that, like, wow, I'm an accomplished human being now. Like, I don't feel that. And I feel like the only way I'm going to feel like that is if I'm making choices based off what I want for myself and what I think is the right thing for me to do. And only you as an individual can say that for yourself. But you can't get that from anyone else. It's just the fact that we're taught that is why we strive for that. But it's just like not the case. It's not going to lead you into like a really happy lifestyle, even if you are manifesting all these things and they're coming true. I think that's what I've realized recently, is that you can manifest stuff or try to manifest things and then you work on that. But then once you get those things, like you just don't feel anything.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, well, now I have to go find something else to manifest to make me feel happy or get that boost of serotonin. But then actually, yeah, I think sometimes you do have to kind of just take a step back and think, why am I doing these things? Like, what is the purpose and what is the end goal? And I think the idea of like seeing yourself as an old, like what you mentioned before, like seeing yourself as this 50-year-old or 60-year-old is also a little bit terrifying for me, as terrifying it is to look back, because I just think, I don't know what I like. All I can think about myself at that age is I want to be financially stable in whatever form my life looks like. I just want to be the type of person that doesn't have to work at that age, that doesn't have to like struggle, scrimp and save, that doesn't have to rely on other people. But beyond that, I have no idea what my life looks like, and I find it a bit scary to think about that.
Yeah, but I do think that's enough, just because like that's then gonna influence like what your life is gonna look like, because you have that one thing. And it's really good you have that clarity as well, and you've just made me think like, oh, I definitely have a similar level of clarity in terms of, okay, financially want to be free. I don't want to be held down by anything, anyone, any circumstance, and probably gonna relate to literally most people listening anyway. Financial freedom is a very common goal to have, but I think being like super clear is really going to help you like dream big and manifest well. And I think 50 or 60 years old is probably difficult to try and set those goals. And I was just thinking there, like when you said, oh, I'm trying to figure out like the goals you set before were based off of expectations from other people and like outside sources and stuff like that. And it made me think like, okay, well, if I were to do the same exercise, like today, I wanted to think about what goals I wanted to manifest, what kind of future I wanted to manifest. Try and visualize like, okay, in 6 months' time, what do I want my life to look like? Because that doesn't overwhelm me, and it allows me to actually get a little bit more specific than I could if I asked myself, when I'm 50, what do I want in my life? Because also just having kids and stuff overwhelms me right now, so I don't like to think about all that. So it's like avoiding.
But do you think having those goals solidified, or like especially like our age, when it's probably like a lot closer that time, do you think it's good to have those things like really clear in your mind in general? Like whether you want kids, whether you want to get married, whether you want a family, whether you want to live in a certain place? Or is it just a case of having these wider goals or certain milestones outside of that, maybe like career-wise, that you could focus on to manifest?
I don't know. I feel like with specificity, there's certain things you can't control and there are certain things you can. I feel like focusing on like feelings is really easy, because I think what's really funny about manifestation, and like every either podcast episode or anything I read that's related to manifestation, people always joke like, oh, I really want to manifest like $1 million in my bank account, or like 100K or something. Like money always comes into play. And I always think people go straight to money because of what money can get you, right? Like when you have $1 million in your bank account, you then don't have the anxiety over paying your rent or mortgage next month. You don't have the anxiety over reaching a certain professional or career goal. You don't have the anxiety over whether you're deciding whether to have kids or not. Like you don't, that's not even a thought process. So it's like, for me, it's a process of figuring out, okay, I want to be financially free, but why? Like, why do I want to be financially free? So that I can have kids, so that I can have like a family around me, so that I can have like really rich relationships, so that I can have time to spend with those people that I love. More recently as well, I've had to take up a bit of a caretaking role for my nanny, and what's really at the forefront of my mind is thinking, I want financial freedom so that I can spend as much time with my mum as possible when this happens with her. And like, I'm not worried about the costs of like caretaking and like where I'm going to, like how I'm going to look after her and my own health and her health. Like, there are so many things that because of the specific circumstances of my life right now, I know that I want, and I know that money can give me that. So I'm able to kind of like, almost when I'm thinking about, okay, what goals I want to manifest, I can focus on the feeling, that feeling of freedom, that time that I would get back from having money, rather than like focusing on like a specific milestone or a specific figure to have in my bank account, or a specific figure to get from like a business deal or whatever. I think that's a really big shift I've made in my like goal setting process and like how specific I get. What about you?
When I've thought about like manifesting stuff, it has been along the similar lines, to have like a certain lifestyle rather than like specific things. Well, previously I've tried to manifest specific things in my life, but now when I look at it, it's like, what does my overall life picture look like? But something really weird that my brain does, and it's gonna sound really strange, but I think this is something that I really need to figure out and stop or just like solve, is when it comes to money. I don't know why I have this fear of having a lot of money, and it's so bad because I know that's why I don't have it. And I don't know if you're gonna say you relate or not, but it's frustrating to me because I can't control it, but I genuinely like panic. Well, I feel like I can't right now, just because I think I've subconsciously had this fear for a long time, but it's only recently become a reality for me. As much as I fear like not having enough money to like pay my bills and stuff, I fear having I don't know what too much money is, but I fear having a lot of it. You know, when you were talking about, oh, people will try to manifest like £1 million in their bank account, seeing £1 million in my bank account, that actually gives me anxiety. And I hate to say that because that actually makes me feel ill, thinking about like the fact that having loads of money would like make me more worried. But it's just the thought of losing it. I don't know what it is. It's just that I imagine, and I try so hard to stop myself imagining this, but I just can't help it. Imagine my future self having a lot of money, but then I have this panic that my bank will shut my account. I will just lose this access to this money, and it terrifies me because then I get really annoyed at myself, and I'm like, well, how are you ever meant to like reach another level of financial stability and just independence if you actually have this idea in your head that you're scared of having the money? It's just such a like a facepalm moment because I'm like, yeah, what? I'm doing it to myself, but I don't know how to get out of that rut.
Okay, so yeah, we established that I have the exact same anxiety. Yeah,
really.
So, but I've also very recently as well, like probably this year, came to that, like accepted that like that is actually what gives me a little bit of anxiety. I also last year, because I was trying to figure out last year, I thought it was like a fear of success as well, which I've heard kind of thrown around, but I think it's also just kind of like a paraphrased fear of failure. But there's a book I'm reading right now, and she talks about how to get rid of this so well, and I want to tell you. And obviously, like the fear of having too much money, like the video that you sent at the TikTok video you sent me, it does relate to like what the younger version of ourselves thought was possible for us in terms of what kind of lifestyle we could live. And for me, the way I'm trying to figure it out is getting like super specific on actually for example, in my 30s, what kind of life do I want to live, and actually how much is everything I want gonna cost, and like actually breaking it down into figures and writing that figure totaling up that figure and like getting used to seeing that and thinking, okay, then I actually need like 300k a year to be able to pay the mortgage bills for like my dream home, to be able to pay for care for my grandparent, you know, like all of these things that I personally would add on my list of like, these are the costs of living for me specifically. And then seeing that total, trying to like almost get yourself used to that number and like make almost like mapping out in your brain, like, okay, you actually need that amount of money because it's going to go towards X number of things. And it relates back to a video I was gonna make actually literally like in the next few days. I can't remember where I saw it. I saw this video. It was like a street style interview, and this person was going up to people and just saying like, if you got 10k tomorrow, what would you do? And almost everyone that was asked that question was like, oh my god, I don't know, I'd really just dump it in a savings account, or like, oh, I'd spend it on a holiday. Like, people didn't know. And I thought to myself, I was like, if you don't know what you're going to do with an extra 10k, you're never going to get an extra 10k. And that's not even from like a spirituality perspective. That's from a purely like, why would, like, there's no way you would get 10k and spend it if you don't know what you're going to do with it. Like in that way as well. I don't mean like, oh, you wouldn't actually physically get it into your bank account. It's like you wouldn't actually be able to get it and keep it. And the same concept applies to budgeting and like 50 Cent going broke. Like, he had so much money and he literally spent himself into bankruptcy because he wasn't able to like measure and manage what he had. And like, he probably had, as well as like a lack of just understanding of like money management, which most people have. It's fine to have that. There's no shame around that. He probably had like a fear of success, or like fear of like having X amount of money because he didn't know what he was going to do with it. You know what I mean? And like, I think having that level of, or building that level of awareness of like exact amounts of money you're going to spend on your dream lifestyle is going to make it easier for you to see that number in your bank account and like spend that amount of money on the cost of your living or on the cost of your lifestyle. And I think it's really important to get used to that. And it is something I actively avoid doing. Like, especially like recently, like I know I've avoided thinking about like how much rent would be, or like how much my mortgage would be on like my dream home, because when would I ever earn that amount? But then if I avoid thinking about it, why would I ever earn it?
That's a really interesting perspective. I never thought about actually totaling. I've heard it before, but I'd never yet heard it in that way, where you are obviously going to fear it if you don't actually know what you would do with it. Because yeah, I know in a general sense what I want, but I don't know how much those things cost, and I don't know how much I would actually be spending to live that life. I just know what that life looks like on the outside. So that's really interesting, like next level or next step up from just manifesting certain things, is to get clear on. I've always avoided previously, because when a lot of people talk about manifestation, it's like you have to take the how out of the equation in terms of how it's going to happen. That's not up to you and it doesn't matter. You just focus on what you want and be like happy with that. So I always thought if I did start to like get into the nitty-gritty of like how things would cost, then I'd automatically be thinking to myself, how on earth am I going to afford all this?
I see. Yeah.
And you don't want to fall into that trap. I think it's a different kind of problem that when you have this mindset of money's not going to stick with me, or I'm going to lose it in some way, whether it's spending it or you literally just it's gonna vanish out of thin air. Like, I don't know why I have that, because this only really came up when I did this journaling session. I don't know what it was for. I got this business course and part of it was money mindset, and they basically had these journal prompts, and in there it was what your fears around money, or I don't know, something like that. So I was writing all this stuff, and I was like, why am I writing this? Like, this isn't okay. But then when you do stuff like that, you're just like,
always comes out.
Holy crap. Yeah. It's like, what is my mind doing? That's not okay. I just thought it was so abnormal to have those thoughts though, because I was like, why? If you're someone that wants all this fortune and good life, and I want to live the good life, but like I'm scared of it at the same time. It's crazy. So that's definitely something I'm kind of trying to work on. And it just reminded me when we were talking about people just like having money dropped on them by manifesting, because apparently that happens to people, but they have let go of that fear around money. They like wholly accept it, and I think I'm that's the barrier I'm kind of facing.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm on the same page as well. And I think you've also just reminded me, just because you like asked why like 5 times in a row there when you were like doing that journaling thing. And you've just reminded me that like one of the things I really want to do for my, or like undoing my limiting beliefs, especially like the younger me, the limiting beliefs that the younger me had, I really want to do the exercise where you kind of, so you state your like belief of the world. Like, so for example, if you also have like a limiting money belief where you think someone like you would never live in I don't know, triple story mansion in, I don't know what I'm saying,
Los Angeles.
in LA. Yeah, so let's go with that. So someone like you, a girl from a small town in England is never going to live in like a penthouse suite in LA. Like, why? So that's your statement, that's your belief of your world, right? And you ask yourself why, and you like, it's a method, I don't know who coined it, but it's like a method to like get the root cause of your belief. You ask yourself, why is that? You basically keep asking yourself why till you get to like a very honest answer. And you have to be honest when you're doing this exercise as well. And it's an exercise I want to do with myself for like my beliefs. So like why I don't think I deserve my dream house or like my dream holiday, whatever it is. And then when you get to that bottom, so you've asked yourself why 5 times, you basically think of like evidence against that statement. And there's going to be loads of evidence in your life against things that you believe. For example, you think that money's just going to be like taken away from you, or like it's just going to be zapped by your bank account. Has that ever happened to anyone? Like, well, factually.
I don't know about anyone else, but this happened to me, so I don't know why I'm worrying about it.
Exactly. I'm not trying to like invalidate you. I'm just trying to say oh, look for the evidence when you examine all of your like beliefs of your financial dreams. Look for the evidence that like is against that, and if there even is evidence for it, is that like actual evidence, or are you just like clutching at the straws and stuff as well? I think this is definitely like, related to CBT, which is like a way of like examining and like regulating your thoughts, I guess, a little bit, and it's a way that helps with depression and anxiety and stuff. But I think it really helps with like really squashing your limiting beliefs, and could really help in like a financial aspect as well, if like money manifestations are something you struggle with, like me and Farah. But that's something I'm gonna do, and this is my little reminder to myself to do it.
I'm gonna do the same, because I've done the journaling and stuff before, but I didn't take it beyond that in terms of, I think there is definitely things that you have to actually do and work on within your mind once you've kind of got to the root cause of the reason. And I think what you mentioned is actually then turning it to the flip side and actually giving yourself that proof that what you're thinking is actually not the case and not something to be so worried about. Yeah, I didn't really take it that far. I just like acknowledged it and I was like, okay, that's my problem, moving on.
That's enough for today. Yeah.
Gosh, there's a lot of work to do in this life. It's a lot. It gets tiring. It gets really freaking tiring.
Well, there's a really nice, rich glow up on the other side of it, so it's
true.
Worth it.
It will be worth it. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that brings us to an end. I feel like we had a lot of actionable tips there as well, in terms of like little things you could do. I'm including costing up your dream life and getting a little total down and visualizing
I'm gonna be doing that
in your bank account. Yeah, I'm gonna do it, as well as thinking about like goals that you want for yourself, that aren't influenced by anyone else. Doing a little exercise on your limiting beliefs, asking yourself why those beliefs are your beliefs and finding evidence for or against those. Most importantly, just doing all this work. It's really hard, but do it. Set aside the half an hour and pick one of those things. Don't do them all, because you're gonna have a horrible day if you do them all.
We don't want to ruin your life completely.
Yeah. Yeah, pick one day, do it. And you know what? You don't even have to do this like every day. I feel like one day a week doing something difficult is enough, because it's still something that you didn't do last month or last year, and you're gonna get better for doing it. But we're gonna round off that episode on how not to manifest your goals by giving you advice on how to manifest your goals.
Well, I think we've come to like a bit of a realization within ourselves of the things that we need to work on. So hopefully that's a bit of inspo for other people if you're kind of dealing with the same things. Cut it out.
Yeah, cut it out.
Stop doing that.
Stop doing that. You're self-sabotaging.
Literally, that's what it is.
But give us your advice as well. We're always asking at the end of these episodes for you to comment and like you to share your thoughts and stuff, because I mean, I'm just sharing mine, so why not? But thank you for listening. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, give us a rating, pretty please. And if you're on YouTube, hello, leave us a comment. And yeah, love speaking to you, and we'll see you next week. Bye.